The rareware universe is probably my favorite collective universe of characters and worlds. Does this mean all rareware games are connected? I don't really think all of them, but a surprising amount do. This will not be a video saying James Bond and King K. Rool live in the same universe. That is, unless the evidence points to it. I'm looking to chain together games through the Easter eggs and lore that connects one world to the next. That will be how we see how interconnected these worlds are amongst rareware's vast catalog of video games. I will also attempt to map them out based on what I believe to be their locations relative to one another. You'll see how I connect the dots. This is Mapping the Rare Universe. To start this video, let's swing on over to the Kongs. Donkey Kong Isle is the home of the Kongs. You've got Donkey Kong, Tiny Kong, Dixie Kong, Chunky Kong, Funky Kong, Cranky Kong, Wrinkly Kong, Kitty Kong. A lot of Kongs. But the ones we really need to focus on are Donkey himself and Diddy Kong. Pass on the Kongs for a sec, and let's acknowledge Crocodile Isle, where the Kremlings live and where Diddy's Kong quest takes place. We've got King K. Rool, Clump, Crusher, Clubba, K. Lumsy. Yeah, a lot of Kremlings too. The only one we really need is the worst racer in Diddy Kong Racing, Crunch. So lining up DK Isle with Crocodile Isle, then we have the worlds from Donkey Kong Country 3 that are considered the northern Kremisphere, so we place them north of DK Isle. Now we head over to our next spot, Timber's Island. Timber the Tiger is Diddy's friend who sends a letter to Diddy to ask him for help in dealing with the space menace Wizpig. At some point, space and Wizpig will be important, but not at this moment. We'll get to it. Also present are Pipsy, Drumstick, Bumper, Taj, Tricky, Bluey, Bubbler, Smokey, and Titi. Just for clarification. Diddy makes his way to Timber Island, which is stated to not be far from Donkey Kong Isle, but in the manual for Diddy Kong Racing, it says he sent a message via Squawks to his pal Banjo to join him. I believe at this time Banjo's living up with the Brothers Bears in the Northern Kremisphere, so just bear with me and assume that Banjo's up there. The reason why I don't think Banjo's at Spiral Mountain yet is due to the amount of bears we see in the Isle o' Hags. Banjo, Tooty, and Boggy's family. That's it. And Boggy's family is accustomed to the cold, which is what the Northern Kremisphere is all about. And it says on his way, Conker followed Banjo's, so the Panther Kingdom and Windy have to be somewhere along the route from there to Timber Island. But out of the way from Diddy's route to Timber Island so that Diddy had to send a message. So this is how I think these lay out. Oh, and Crunch just followed Diddy, so Crocodile Isle obviously is close to DK Isle. So this puts Timber's Island a bit further away from DK Isle and Crocodile Isle, which makes sense as it's really a beachfront, so the climate is more tropical. With the exception of the winter levels, but I'll say these are higher up the mountain, similar to DK Isle. And now we progress to the Isle o' Hags. When in Cloud Cuckoo Land in Banjo Tooie, you can see the island. It is completely its own entity and pretty large, with Hailfire Peaks being separated from it as well. Banjo traveled and established his home in Spiral Mountain after the events of Diddy Kong Racing. He's been shown to have an affinity for the plains and flew off until he found it. Then he sent for Tooty, who came over via one of Funky's boats. Obviously, I'm creating a logical narrative to back my points, but let's say Tooty docked on Breagle Beach and Banjo went to pick her up, and that's where he met Kazooie. They all go back to the home he's making in Spiral Mountain, and that's where Banjo Kazooie and beyond take place. To further back what we know about these islands being somewhat in close proximity, we see the same species show up in different worlds. A weasel makes an appearance in DK Isle and Donkey Kong 64, just like the ones we see in Conker, even though they clearly live in the Panther Kingdom. Bears in Donkey Kong Country 3 all look remarkably like Banjo, which is why I believe that that's where Banjo and Tooty are from. And Tip Top the Turtle himself shows up in the Isle o' Hags and Kazooie and Tooie after first being seen on Timber's Island. Now that we've established these worlds, let's connect it even further. These are the obvious ones that connect. On Banjo's Isle o' Hags, we get a few more interesting connections. One in particular that opens the floodgates to other worlds. First, a quick reference to Donkey Kong. He seems to be somewhat of a celebrity in this universe, which makes sense since he is the king of the Kongs. Further references to point out, in Rusty Bucket we have pictures of Conker and Barry pre-Bad Fur Day. We have Naughty and Click Clack Woods, who looks a lot like the enemies in Donkey Kong Country. We also have a few Perfect Dark references spotted. Besides the logo when encountering the aliens in Atlantis, Kazooie asks if their name is Elvis, like the alien in Perfect Dark. So that's somewhere out there in the cosmos, but I believe Perfect Dark takes place in the future. It's stated to take place in 2023, which later I think this can be further confirmed, so stay with me. Bottle's children in Banjo Tooie have posters for Juno and Vela in their rooms, confirming the connection to Force Gemini, opening up the rare universe to further intergalactic travel. We'll come back to this, but I wanted to say it's Mr. Pants, the quirky puzzle game on the Game Boy Advance, is also connected to these games. Balky can be found watching It's Mr. Pants on his TV in Hailfire Peak's icy side, so put the stick people of Mr. Pants World somewhere out there as well. There's also a constellation in Tui found in Witchy World. I'm thinking that maybe this is another planet out there, which is what the constellation is hinting at. We also get a connection to another rare title, Saberman, in Hailfire Peaks, which wouldn't be a huge deal as he explores jungles with rhinos and things. He could be in the DK Isle, but where this gets interesting is the antagonist of Saberman is Saber Wolf, who coincidentally shares the same name with another blue wolf from Killer Instinct, also by Rare. Whether this is just a reference or not, the resemblance is too similar, so I like to believe that this connects Killer Instinct to the rest of the games. Since Killer Instinct states it takes place in the Earth, but in the distant future, we can assume that first of all, yes, the Rare universe takes place on Earth. I hear you ask, where are all the people? These are all animals. Well, sort of. There are a few humans, but it's definitely an interesting humanoid animal-filled world. So far I'm counting 3 different timelines. I'm gonna list them out and dub them as eras. We have the Diddy Kong Racing era, then we have the slightly more in the future Perfect Dark era, and then in the distant future, the Killer Instinct era. Let's dub them the Racing era, Perfect era, and Instinct era. We still have more connections to make. We started getting into space with Force Gemini. Mr. Pants again is referenced and can be seen, just for fun to point out. As we know other planets exist, we know Whizpig came from space and hops planet to planet. Aside from Whizpig, there's another space traveler in Diddy Kong Racing, Tricky the Triceratops. This is not the same Tricky that appears in Starfox Adventures, mind you, however. Another interesting point is Tricky's tribe is referred to as the Earthwalker tribe. But they don't live on Earth. They live on Dinosaur Planet, which is another planet out there in the cosmos. And I should add, this means Starfox Adventures is confirmed to take place in the Rare universe. Perhaps Pygmadengar and Whizpig are related, or at least the same species. Even though Whizpig is giant, Starfox demonstrates that characters can be related and their size is completely different, with Andros and his nephew Andrew. Back to the planet. Let's go back to Tui one more time. In Jolly Roger's Lagoon, we get Captain Blackeye, originally part of the scrapped game Dream. Blackeye introduces us to the pirate side of things. Also, Captain Blubber, but I'm setting him aside to focus on Blackeye. The Rareverse open seas exist in a similar timeline to Diddy Kong Racing. A lot of the humans are exploring the seas. Some may think it takes place in the future due to the cave-like drawings of Banjo and Kazooie, but I believe this takes place before Perfect Dark due to the technology. Perhaps the Rocknut tribe traveled around and did them. Plus a reference in Sea of Thieves to Jolly Roger's Lagoon, you can see Treasure Trove Cove in the opening, and Blackeye is referenced as the boss of a crew in the Golden Sands outpost, so Sea of Thieves happens in Blackeye's lifetime. Sea of Thieves directly connects to another game in an unusual way. Captain Bones shows up in the recent Battletoads game, thus confirming their connection. Just know that they're out there somewhere in space as well. Now we need to go back and revisit an old friend, back to Donkey Kong. Now there are a million rabbit holes we can go down here. I'm not including Smash Bros, Mario Party, or any other sports games. I will include other Donkey Kong games though, which will confirm that Mario and DK are connected. In Tui, Kazooie mentions Mario by name, saying he could probably unclog Lago, Grunty's Toilet, and Grunty Industries. Double confirmation that Mario exists, but I don't believe the Mushroom Kingdom is in the Rare universe. With the introduction of Mario, this could also go in a million directions, but let's just say Mario has traveled and had adventures in this universe via Warp Pipe. He's famous throughout multiple universes, but the Mushroom Kingdom is accessed through warp pipes, and I believe there's one somewhere around DK Isle, which is why him and Donkey Kong interact a lot more than anyone else. I wanted to say the initial connection specifically is Cranky Kong, which is why they were enemies, and DK Jr. is our current Donkey Kong who has since become his friend. Just wanted to throw that little tidbit out. Moving on to a new game, By the Ghoulies takes place after Sea of Thieves, as it takes place after Tui, and you can see the mounted head of Banjo, but it's old and withered. I believe it's aged quite a bit, and the technology has progressed as further evidence. A similarly mounted head can be found in Conker, however, and that does look a lot more like Banjo as we know him. What the heck happens in 3? Where is it Rare? Where? This could be a funny dot to connect. Maybe it can just be revealed as a fake and went over from Conker to the By the Ghoulies mansion. We do learn something further in a little game some of you probably wish I'm not going to talk about, but get over it. By the Ghoulies connects further and is confirmed to be in the Isle o' Hags. Nuts and Bolts Showdown Town, you can see Ghoulhaven Hall and Gruntilda's Tower. Perhaps Mad Monster Mansion evolved into it over time, and this further gets connected down the line to Viva Pinata, which has the plane from By the Ghoulies in the background, putting them in the world as well not long after or at a similar time frame. I like to think just after By the Ghoulies, judging by the shape and condition of the plane. Important to note, Log also confirms the connection to Killer Instinct, Force Gemini, and Battletoads. One other game that connects via Nuts and Bolts is Kameo, Elements of Power. Sitting at a similar place in the timeline, the Enchanted Kingdom is somewhere in the world too. I believe it's far away though. Perhaps it's somewhere in the realm of Cloud Cuckoo Land, as it's stated to be up above in the clouds. But back to Viva Pinata, the presence of the plane in decent shape shows it's in a similar time frame to Nuts and Bolts. Gosh, we're going down a giant rabbit hole here. It feels like these worlds will never end. We established we're on Earth, with many islands that connect in a similar timeline, and there's a plethora of worlds out there, including Dinosaur Planet and Corneria with Force Gemini and the Starfox team, defending the galaxy from the likes of Wizpig and Andros. Somewhere around DK Isle, there's a warp pipe that connects to the Mushroom Kingdom and the Nintendo universe, but that's its own thing. Following the other universe connection trail, we're obviously getting into Smash Bros, and then it opens up basically any game of all time. But I still think it's through warp pipes and even the warp stone that Kongs and Star Fox visit the other universes. It's inevitable at some point Banjo would cross over. Except one thing. In Donkey Kong Country 2, Cranky will rank Diddy Kong based on the DK coins collected against who he dubs video game heroes: Mario, Yoshi, and Link. This directly connects them into the game and shows that they actively can explore in the Kong universe. Mario we knew, but now Link is confirmed? I still feel it's via warp pipes and stones though. But looking off to the corner, we see something interesting. A trash can with the shoes of Sonic the Hedgehog and the blaster of Earthworm Jim. I like to believe Sonic comes from an alternate universe, much like Mario, but Earthworm Jim, he has to be out there in space somewhere because he knows and actively pokes fun at Donkey Kong and Earthworm Jim on the Sega CD, the Worm Kong mask with an arrow through DK's head. Earthworm Jim confirmed. So this is my Rareware World Connected Universe map and how I believe it basically lays out, with 3 eras. The Racing Era, which begins with Donkey Kong and ends with Sea of Thieves. The Perfect Era, with technology that is advanced and civilization is built, and then ends with the Instinct Era, where civilization has collapsed and the Ultra Tech Corporation has taken over to get humanity to evolve further. But before I go, there's one more connection I want to make. That's freaking right, James Bond takes place in the Rare universe. Did you think it was going to get left out? Its maps can be played on Perfect Dark, connecting the 2 games. Goldeneye takes place in the Perfect Era just toward the beginning. There are no other references, but that's where it fits. And that is how a crap ton of Rare games fit into their own universe, all take place on Earth minus the space stuff at different points in time. You have some smaller games and connections like Jetpac and Attic Attack that weren't mentioned, but they do exist in the worlds. I just wanted to cover what I consider the main games, basically. Blast Corps also exists, but it's on a parallel Earth. Does all this make sense to you? Let me know in the comments below. And now, as a tribute to all these awesome games, here's some fan art that was submitted to my Discord. Enjoy! Shout out to all these awesome creators. Thank you for being a part of my community. Be sure to drop a like and hit subscribe. Jiggylookback!